beloved taxi driver,
Raphael was a hardworking guy. He always tried to do better and better and better.
is murdered in cold blood.
That's when they observed a body inside of the trunk.
There were 9 gunshots. That's not an accident.
We had no leads, we had no suspects, had no idea who could have done this to him.
Police uncover a sinister trail of motives.
A lot of people was jealous of Raphael.
Raphael tended to like the ladies a little bit.
Raphael had approximately $2,000 in his vehicle.
But struggle to find suspects.
People were asking, do we have to be scared? Is there a murder out there killing us Hispanics?
We noticed on his license plate of his vehicle, there appeared to be a blood stain.
Until the bizarre truth turns the case on its head.
We're calling him through the loudspeaker, trying to get him to come out of the house, which turned into an hours-long standoff.
When that fingerprint came back with a second person, it really blew it wide open.
We knew he was at the scene.
That was a bombshell. That was a game changer in terms of the criminal prosecution. Ultimately, to come back to these 2 people was something that we never saw coming.
Rogers County, Oklahoma, a quiet rural district north of Tulsa's city limits.
Rogers County is just a great, tight-knit community.
It's an agricultural community, a very wholesome, family-oriented community.
That all changes in the early hours of May 1st, 2015, when a truck driver sees something unusual beneath a bridge.
Our dispatch center received a call of a vehicle partially submerged in the Caney River off Highway 169.
Police and firefighters arrive at the scene in minutes and cordon off the area. Emergency crews check to see if anyone is trapped inside.
The news media was there, and it was being broadcasted over live TV.
As the car is towed onto the riverbank, its trunk pops open.
That's when they initially observed a body inside of the trunk.
At that point, we knew we had a serious crime at hand.
Rogers County Sheriff's detectives arrive and begin their investigation.
When I arrived on scene, I observed a Hispanic male inside of the trunk.
These pockets look like they've been rummaged through.
Only when detectives move the victim's shirt do they realize the violent nature of the attack.
He appeared to have several gunshot wounds to his chest area.
There were 9 gunshots. That's not an accident. 9 gunshots is intentional.
Somebody wanted to make sure that he did not survive his injuries.
The first question facing detectives is who is the man in the trunk?
We did not locate any type of identification or any wallet or anything that a normal person would have in his pockets.
So it made it very hard for us to identify who he was. We were taking photographs of his tattoos and unique markings on his body.
Inside of the vehicle, we found some cell phones.
As the car was submerged, we got lucky that one of the cell phones was placed on the dash and it was fully intact, still operational.
The detectives and forensics team comb the riverbank for further clues.
We noticed a large amount of blood, and we suspected that was the area that the victim was initially shot. Well, near that pool of blood, we also found some shell casings consistent with the size of bullet wounds inside the deceased's body.
A few feet away, detectives notice more clues.
There was several beer cans and a cigarette butt and a piece of tissue.
I was told that a family member had showed up and seen his brother's car on the news, and he said, yes, that's my brother's car.
The young man's brother is Rafael Hernandez Torres, a taxi owner serving customers in Tulsa's Hispanic community.
I showed him a photograph of a tattoo that I had taken from the victim's body. That Oscar immediately identified the tattoo belonging to his brother and then began sobbing and crying because at that point we told him that his brother had been murdered.
It broke my heart. When I seen the pictures, it felt like the whole the whole world just kind of ended.
Oscar called me. When I found out Raphael got shot, I didn't even know how to react. I was just shocked. I was like, how?
Rafael Hernandez Torres was born outside Mexico City on October 22, 1976.
As a kid, he was a rebel.
Growing up, he was always riding his bike from town to town.
He loved to go and get to know people from other places, get to know other cities. He just loved to travel everywhere.
When Rafael was 20 years old, his parents moved him and his siblings to the U.S. As one of the oldest sons, Rafael helped support the family.
It was difficult to move to a different place that we didn't know, and we had to start from zero.
Rafael was the big brother. And as soon as we got here, Rafael told us to get straight to school, learn the language, and just keep on going. Rafael was a hardworking guy. He always tried to do better and better and better.
As a young man, Rafael's warm personality attracted others.
He was so friendly with everyone, especially ladies.
Rafael was enterprising too, turning his passion for travel into a career.
Rafael started his taxi business with one car. From there, it kept on going and going.
Rafael was known in Tulsa's Hispanic community as someone willing to help anyone in need.
Rafael cared about everybody. If he saw you down, he'll try to help you. If he saw you homeless, he'll get you a room and get you a shower and help you out.
He knew people who didn't have anything to eat, and he helped them out. Rafael had a great heart.
What would lead anyone to take Rafael's life so violently on that riverbank?
Everybody knew him. Everybody liked him. He did a service to his community, always gave back to his community. At this point, we're thinking, why would somebody kill him?
At the crime scene, detectives ask Oscar and Juan what they know about Rafael's last hours before his body was discovered in the river.
Rafael called me and told me that he was going to Texas. But the next day, he didn't call me, which was strange because he was always calling me every time he went out of state.
Police ask if Oscar and Juan know why anyone might want to kill their brother.
We learned that Rafael was known to carry approximately $2,000 on him at all times.
Whoever did this took his ID, took his wallet, took any money he may have had. So that led to the possible motive that Rafael had been killed for the money.
Oscar gives the detectives one more useful piece of information.
Oscar told us that some of Rafael's vehicles had been vandalized where Rafael ran his business.
A lot of people was jealous of Rafael because he was really successful in the business that he was doing.
Had the beloved taxi driver made a lethal enemy in his community?
We had no leads, we had no suspects, had no idea who could have done this to him.
This wasn't just a disagreement or something. It was a very violent act.
I had a lot of questions about Rafael. Why? Who? Why would they kill him? What did he do?
This is not a random killing. This is someone who targeted Rafael and wanted him to die.
Coming up, detectives uncover a tangled web of romantic interests.
Not only does he call her frequently and go by and see her, but I know he bought her flowers.
She had an unusual relationship with her ex-husband. They both still slept in the same bed.
So a scorned husband, that could fit right in with that. Now we're starting to think this could be a motive.
And a surprising lead sends the case in a new direction.
We were shocked when we found a second individual's fingerprint at the scene.
After discovering Rafael Hernandez Torres shot dead and stuffed into the trunk of his own taxicab, detectives are trying to establish if it was a robbery gone wrong or if he'd been targeted by someone with a grudge.
We were trying to see if we could locate who had vandalized Rafael's vehicles, see if there's anyone that had a motive or a reason to harm or murder Rafael.
Detectives are also on the lookout for vehicles spotted near the bridge on the night of the murder.
We established a tip line, and we got that number out to the news outlets.
We received multiple tips from passerbys describing that they saw a truck on the side of the highway, a black SUV on the side of the highway, and then a silver car on the side of the highway.
So we initially started looking for vehicles that could match that description in the hopes that we could run a name.
Next, investigators head to the heart of Tulsa's Latino district, where Raphael based his business.
The area of 21st and Garnett in Tulsa is a predominantly Latino community. Right at the heart of that is Santa Cecilia Plaza.
There's grocery stores, there's hair salons, ice cream parlors, where the Hispanic community gathers with their families.
The Plaza Santa Cecilia, it's a place to go if you're Hispanic most of the time. Something's always happening.
Raphael parked his vehicles outside of the Mercandito and also right next to the ice cream shop.
Raphael spent every day walking around talking to these people.
Raphael gave rides to people that needed them. He helped translate, and he's just well known in his community as a person always giving back and helping. Very kind and loving person.
Raphael always said that's what he loved to do. He loved, helping out people.
Detectives canvass Raphael's friends at the plaza.
They were shocked that he was murdered and killed. And they were heartbroken.
Was there anyone who had a reason to want him dead?
It was well known in that community that Raphael had money, that he carried money with him.
We spoke with Roman, who was considered a maintenance man around the area.
We spoke with Felipe, who owned a grocery store, as well as Adon, who ran the ice cream cart.
Adon came into contact with Raphael multiple times in a week as he pushed that cart up and down those businesses.
We actually learned that people seemed to really like Raphael. No one really seemed to have a motive to want to harm him.
As detectives continue searching the plaza for leads, they gain access to Raphael's cell phone records.
So initially, we had the physical phone. I drafted a search warrant to try to extract as much data as possible from that phone. Raphael was talking to multiple people between 9:15 and 9:30. So we know that he's alive at that point, or he wouldn't be answering his phone. And then after that time period, he doesn't answer any more phone calls.
It's always important when someone has been murdered to find out who they talked to last. One of the numbers that we had identified on Raphael's phone belonged to a female named Letty. Letty worked at a laundromat near where Raphael kept his vehicles. We found out through Oscar that Raphael and Letty may have had some type of relationship. Raphael would frequent Letty's place of business at the laundromat and would go by to see her.
Not only does he call her frequently and go by and see her, but I know he bought her flowers. He took little gifts up to her. He took her to Dallas one time for one of his fairs. They drove to Dallas and then drove right back.
There's one more thing about Letty that gets the officers' attention.
We also discovered that Letty was married.
As officers dig into this new lead, Raphael's autopsy results come in.
Raphael was shot 3 times in the front and 6 times in the back.
There's a mindset behind somebody shooting somebody that many times. It tells you that this is a crime of passion. It's not just something that just happened.
So a scorned husband, that could fit right in with that. Now we're starting to think this could be a motive.
Had Letty's husband killed Raphael in a jealous rage? Detectives decide to get some answers from Letty.
So we went to interview Letty, and Letty was not very forthcoming.
We had talked to her about her relationship with Raphael. What is that? What is that relationship? She told us that they were just friends.
Letty did deny being in a relationship with Raphael.
We learned after speaking with Letty that she had not been truthful to us. She did not provide a correct date of birth, did not provide her correct address.
At the station, detectives search Letty's name in the police database.
We later learned Letty's true address and her true date of birth. In doing so, we discovered that Letty had an outstanding warrant.
So obviously, we're on high alert with her because she's trying to deceive us.
Knowing that we've been lied to, we want to observe Letty's comings and goings, so we'd start conducting surveillance on Letty's home.
As detectives stake out Letty's home, their attention is drawn to a vehicle.
As we arrived, we saw a vehicle pull in that was almost an exact match to one of them mentioned in the tip line.
He's driving a black truck with a silver stripe on the back of it. And that was a possible vehicle we were looking for.
Detectives investigating the shooting of taxi driver Rafael Hernandez Torres believe his friendship with laundromat worker Letty could have sent her husband into a jealous rage.
First thing we decided to do when looking into Letty and her husband was we went to see who her husband's talking to.
Then a truck pulls up in Letty's driveway that matches a vehicle spotted near the scene of Rafael's murder.
So from there, we decided that we're going to make contact with the individual in the truck.
Officers confront the truck's owner, who claims to be the friend of Letty's husband, Mario.
Rogelio was basically crashing on Mario and Letty's couch, and they were putting him up for several weeks.
While speaking with Rogelio, we noticed on his license plate of his vehicle that there appeared to be a blood stain.
And there's a bloody fingerprint on the tag of the truck. Looking under the truck, and there's a piece of tissue that is kind of consistent with tissue that we found at the scene.
Is this the evidence detectives have been searching for? They search the house and see what else they can find.
During the search of that home, we did find a firearm inside the home. We submitted that to the state crime lab.
We had a victim that had been killed, put into the trunk of his vehicle, and then that vehicle was subsequently pushed into the river. It was a very narrow window of time that all this happened in. So in most of the investigators' mind, it's a very good possibility that there's two people involved in this. We got what we believe could be the possible vehicle. We have evidence that Letty's husband and this friend of his could be our suspects. And we're thinking this is the big crack to the case that we've been looking for.
Police bring Mario and Rogelio in for questioning. They ask Mario about Rafael. Had the taxi driver's advances on Letty made him a target?
Mario was familiar with that Rafael had bought his wife flowers and was known to stop by her place of business frequently, but he did not seem to be very upset by that.
Mario insists that he was never jealous of Rafael because he and Letty are divorced.
We had discovered that Letty had an unusual relationship with her ex-husband. They both still lived in the same house. They lived there with their children. They even slept in the same bed.
She was kind of out seeing people. He didn't care.
Mario also insists that he was at home asleep on the night of the murder. Rogelio gives the same alibi, insisting that he never left the house that night.
Their alibis were not really solid. We were worried about them being co-conspirators, so at the time, we weren't putting just a whole lot of stock into that.
Officers press Rogelio about the blood on his license plate.
But we talked to him about the blood on it, and he's got a good excuse for that. He cut his finger trying to put the tag on, and the bloody fingerprint is his blood. They were more than willing to provide their DNA and fingerprints to clear themselves.
Despite officers' suspicion of Mario and Rogelio, the lab results tell a different story.
We have DNA from the scene, and Rogelio and Mario don't possess that DNA.
The firearm inside the home did not match bullets that we found in Rafael.
And based on their phone numbers, they weren't at the scene. And we found zero evidence linking them to the crime, and that whole theory really started to fall apart quick. We were going back to the drawing board and we were starting over again.
We weren't sure on where to go from here other than talking to the community. It was very frustrating during this point.
With each passing day, pressure to solve the case is only increasing.
People were asking, do we have to be scared? Is there a murder out there killing us Hispanics?
My whole family was worried because they didn't want me doing the taxing business because they didn't want me to be the same as my brother.
At a crossroads in the investigation, police find a new way forward when they gain access to further cell phone records from the night of the murder.
One of the last contacts that Raphael had was a fare that was supposed to be getting a ride to Texas later that night, and Raphael never showed up.
But there's one other number that we know is also communicating with Raphael at around the time of his death.
Raphael was scheduled to pick up an individual and told him that he was going to be late because he had another job.
Raphael had told him that he was going to help a friend who had gotten into an accident, and he was going to go translate for him to the police. We know that phone conversation took place around 9:15, and we believe that around 9:35 that Raphael was murdered.
Had Raphael been lured to his death by a call from someone he knew?
As we start diving into the call detail records on that phone number, we're able to follow the tower information and the location of that phone to the scene of the crime.
We were able to track Raphael's phone and the suspect phone, both going to the same area. However, Raphael's phone didn't leave, and the suspect phone went back to Tulsa.
This was very important to us because we knew that this was the possible killer that enticed Raphael to where he ultimately was shot and killed.
That's when we make the decision to focus everything on that number.
When police try to identify the phone's owner, there's a problem.
We get subscriber information for the phone number, and it comes back to a fictitious name.
The number was on a prepaid phone. It wasn't attached to any particular person.
That number was very important to us, especially after seeing the links that the individual went to hide their identity. We felt very strong that this number was going to belong to the killer.
And so investigators had to start looking at other ways of identifying who this phone belonged to.
We started to get call detail records for that number.
And they started contacting people that were in contact with the cell phone.
We were able to pinpoint a phone number from someone that talked to the suspect phone several times close to the time of the killing.
The phone number belongs to a man named Marco Lara.
But once we got the name for Marco Lara, we started running a criminal history check, and we find the drug charges, some firearms charges, stuff that we were interested in when you're looking for a violent killer. We knew that Marco knew who possessed our bad guy's phone number because he had been calling it.
Marco ran with some of the same people in that area that Raphael had contact with. And so we really felt like Marco was going to be a good spot to gain some information.
We went to the area of the plaza. Marco lived one street over, and we staked out his house. We saw a truck pull into his driveway, and he gets out of the driver's seat, and he walks into the house. So we get out, and we start covering exits to make sure that he isn't leaving. But that's when things went south.
2 weeks after cab driver Rafael Hernandez Torres is found shot dead in the trunk of his car, police are about to confront Marco Lara, a man they believe may know the identity of the killer.
We went there to make contact with Marco. He refused to come to the door.
We're calling him out through the loudspeaker, trying to get him to come out of the house, which turned into a standoff. We established a phone connection. There was a woman and children in the house, his family, and we're requesting for him to come out. And this goes on for a long time. Eventually, his wife and children come out, and we believe, that it's just him in the home.
There was a several-hour standoff with him in which he ultimately gave up and came outside and surrendered.
Police take Marco into custody and begin their interrogation.
Initially, we were thinking, this is a bad guy. He's got criminal history. He's actively resisting us coming and arresting him. We're thinking, okay, this could very well be an associate of our killer, if not possibly involved.
But cell tower phone records prove otherwise.
But once we got him arrested, we were able to determine that his phone as well had not traveled to the area where Raphael was killed.
If Marco is not involved, then why had he resisted arrest?
He has an outstanding warrant.
He's doing whatever he can to keep from going to jail.
No longer a direct suspect, Marco still has information valuable to the investigation.
So we had seized his phone. We had his phone. I typed in our suspect's number, and he said, that's him.
That number belonged to Roman Medrano, who lived in Tulsa.
Marco provided us the apartment complex that Roman lived at.
So knowing that Roman Medrano was the owner of that phone, we sat at the apartment complex and we figured out what apartment he was in.
And the next morning, we served a search warrant on that apartment.
When detectives search the apartment where Roman Medrano lives with his wife Blanca, they're surprised by what they find.
As we entered the residence, I noticed there was no furniture. It appeared that Roman maybe didn't have a lot of money. Maybe he was struggling to pay his bills.
We find that there's very little in the way of furniture, and it looks like things are being sold off. There's IRS paperwork scattered about.
Searching through Blanca's purse, officers make a discovery that raises their suspicions further.
There was approximately $2,000 in her purse. Raphael had approximately $2,000, in his vehicle. And now our suspect's wife has this large sum of money in her purse that is pretty close to the amount.
We had the one suspect number that we had determined to belong to Roman Medrano. At that point, we felt we had enough to bring Roman and his wife in for questioning.
At the police station, detectives first interview Roman's wife, Blanca.
Blanca initially denied knowing who Raphael was.
Blanca told us that she was not given a ride by Raphael, that Roman has nothing to do with this.
Then how to explain the $2,000 in her purse?
Roman doesn't have any money. He's worried about losing his roof over his head. It's well known in the community that Raphael carries lots of cash with him. So I don't think it was any secret that by killing Raphael that Roman could get a payday out of that. Blanca basically told us that Roman was with her the night of the homicide, that he's always home.
In another interview room, detectives question Roman.
Roman told us that he did not know Raphael, that he didn't know that his wife knew Raphael, that he had never been to the area where the homicide occurred. Roman denied every aspect of any knowledge of the case whatsoever.
Roman just heard of Raphael's taxi service and that he was, doing work in the Hispanic community.
But detectives have information that suggests a closer connection.
Shortly after the first interview with Marco, he reached out to us and gave us more information about Roman. Marco told us that he had overheard Roman and another individual talking about how Raphael had given Roman's wife, Blanca, a ride in this taxi cab to the Tulsa County Jail.
Pressed further, Roman admits to knowing more about Raphael than he first let on.
Raphael had a successful business and tended to like the ladies a little bit.
Roman did not like the fact that she was taking rides with Raphael.
He still wasn't willing to tell us that he was, at the scene of the crime.
Confronted with Roman's admission that she'd taken rides with Raphael, Blanca's story begins to change.
Now she knows Raphael. She's telling us that they had talked, they knew of each other.
Blanca began to tell us that during one of her rides with Raphael, that he came on to her and that she believed that it was inappropriate and told Roman about it.
We had learned that Raphael had made comments to Blanca as trying to hit on her, and that this was very upsetting to Roman. Blanca described Roman as a very jealous man.
Had something happened between Raphael and Blanca that triggered Roman to seek revenge?
Based on how many times they were shot, there was a personal element to this. We believe that Raphael's conduct towards Roman's wife could have been a motive to kill him. At this point in the investigation, we definitely feel like we have our guy.
"17 days after Rafael Hernandez Torres' murder, police are investigating husband and wife, Roman and Blanca Medrano.
There were two angles that led us to Roman. One was jealousy. We knew that Roman was aware of Rafael giving a ride to Blanca.
Roman believed that Rafael disrespected his wife by coming on to her as she described, which would indicate a motive behind Rafael's killing.
But we also knew that Roman was struggling financially. And we had every reason to believe that Roman would know that Rafael carried money with him.
We definitely feel like we've got probable cause to arrest him. We feel like we have our guy. We don't know if there's another individual at this point, but we know we've got at least one of them.
Under questioning, the couple remains adamant in their denials.
Roman would never come out and tell us the truth.
Roman told us that he had never been to the area where the homicide occurred. Blanca gives us an alibi for Roman and says that he's at the house with her. We knew that wasn't true because it was Roman's cell phone that was at the scene. We got the overlay of suspect location from the cell towers. We knew the possessor of that phone was involved in this killing.
Was it possible that someone else had Roman's phone on the night of the murder?
We had the evidence from the cell phone that Roman talked to Blanca 20 times the night of the homicide. If you're sitting right next to him, why are you calling him that many times? And she says, I'm not. So things started to change. Now we have actual evidence from, the mouth of his own wife that what he's saying isn't true. So to this point, we have a very compelling circumstantial case. We've got the cell phone records. We have motive.
Police take Roman's fingerprints and swab him for DNA.
And then we get the information back from their crime lab, and we find DNA from the scene on a beer bottle that belongs to Roman Medrano.
The DNA evidence that came back to Roman Medrano really firmed up the case against him. It went from a very circumstantial case to a really good case.
Police are ready to charge Roman with murder, but know the case is far from airtight.
There was no murder weapon. We didn't have an eyewitness to it. We knew that proving it in court was going to be very difficult to do.
Then, as detectives go back carefully over forensic reports from the state crime lab, they find something unexpected.
We were shocked when we found a second individual's fingerprint at the scene.
When that fingerprint came back with a second person, it really blew it wide open.
This fingerprint affirmed our suspicion that there was more than one person involved in the killing.
That was a bombshell. That was a game changer in terms of the criminal prosecution, because now we had an eyewitness.
That print came back to a guy by the name of Adon Mora. Adon Mora was a member of the community there in the plaza.
This fingerprint came back from the Department of Homeland Security when Adon Mora was deported previously.
Adon Mora was known as the Ice Cream Man.
When I found out that the Ice Cream Man was involved, it was a shock because you don't expect someone to be that person.
Why would Rafael's friend, the ice cream vendor, turn against him?
We knew he was at the scene. We knew he knew the victim. We knew he knew the other suspect. Marco Laura told us that Adon and Roman were pretty tight. I mean, they spent a lot of time together.
The consensus amongst the investigators is that it was more than likely a two-reason motive. One, they were in dire straits, needing money. And two, that Rafael had disrespected Roman in talking to his wife, Blanca. At that point, we issued a warrant for Adon Mora. However, we did not have a location as where he was at.
We spoke with an individual that told us that he had gotten scared about a criminal investigation and that he had went up north.
But we did find that he was on Facebook. We wrote a search warrant to Facebook, and Facebook provided us a probable location of Adon.
we were able to locate those IP addresses into a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. It gave us about a 3-block area.
Detectives contact U.S. Marshals, who take Adon into custody within a matter of hours.
I read Adon his rights. While speaking with him, he acted as if he was not close to Raphael in any way. When I asked him specifically if he had been to the area of the Caney River, he stopped the interview and requested that his attorney be present.
Hearing of Adon's arrest, Roman requests another interview with police.
During that interview, Roman was trying to give me scenarios where Adon had perpetrated this crime, and Roman was just trying to give him a ride, had no idea what was going on.
Told that Roman has pinned the blame on him, Adon decides to cooperate and tell his side of the story.
Adon eventually agrees to speak with us and said that Roman had owed him money and that he had a way to get him his money back.
Adon says that the night of the homicide, Roman tells him that he needs Adon to come with him and that he was going to get him the money. So Adon gets in the vehicle with Roman. Roman stops. They get a pack of beer, and they drive down to the riverbank of the Caney River.
Had Adon just signed on to help Roman kill Raphael? If so, which one of them fired the gun?
There's a lot of things that we don't know at this point.
We had 2 people that we could put at the crime scene, but we didn't know who the trigger man was.
We felt confident that we could prove that Roman Medrano was there and was a part of the crime. But Roman was trying to give me scenarios where Adon had perpetrated this crime. Adon is doing his best he can to separate himself from the crime.
It's extremely important for the family members that we get justice for them. This was an incredibly violent crime, and we wanted the person that pulled that trigger.
When I found out Raphael was lured out because someone needed help, it was just horrible. Why would you lie to him like that?
We wanted a conviction for the community, for the family, so we requested that Adon take a polygraph. There's no way that we can give Raphael back, but what we can do is solve the crime and send the perpetrators to prison.
Police now have 2 suspects in custody for the shooting of Rafael Hernandez Torres, Roman Medrano, and Adon Mora Ramos.
Ultimately, to come back to these 2 people was something that we never saw coming.
Adon's unexpected involvement in the murder gives police a valuable way to secure a conviction. To ensure he's telling the truth, police have Adon submit to a polygraph test.
During the interview with Adon, he explained to us that Roman wanted him to be at a certain location to help him with a job of some sort.
They went out to the area where the homicide had occurred, and they were there drinking some beer and just hanging out.
Adon doesn't really know what's going on. He's asking Roman, what are we doing? How are we going to get this money? Well, Roman keeps walking off, and he's on the phone. He makes a phone call where Adon can't hear him. After a period of time, Adon sees Raphael's silver car pulling down where they're at.
Raphael believed that he was going to help a friend who had gotten into an accident.
It was Roman's cell phone that made the call to lure Raphael out to the rural secluded area.
According to Adon, Raphael drank a few beers with them, and then Roman asked for his help jump-starting his car.
Roman directed Raphael's vehicle to pull down and give him a jump. Roman tells Adon to take the jumper cables and hook them up to the cars.
Adon tells investigators that what happened next took him by surprise.
Adon is trying to hook up the cables under the hood of the car, and he hears the gunshots. He looks up and says that he sees Roman standing over Raphael, and that Raphael has been shot several times. Adon fingers Roman as the triggerman, as the actual killer.
The polygraph test confirms that Adon is telling the truth.
That was the last piece of evidence that we needed. The information that he gave was truthful. And it became clear that Roman was really the one that had a personal vendetta against Raphael and the financial motive for it. But we knew Adon participated. We knew he helped out with it. Adon admitted that he put Raphael's body in the trunk and helped push the vehicle into the river. And Adon said he was afraid that Roman was going to shoot him as well.
Adon never says anything about the money. Adon just says he's worried that he's going to be next. Now, he's a witness to this crime.
And so Adon, because of that fear, fled the area shortly after the crime had happened. Ultimately, we charged Adon with accessory and gave him a 15-year sentence. Adon was there. He could have stopped this, and he didn't. He could have cooperated, and he didn't. So he needed to go to prison. Roman entered a plea of no contest to murder in the first degree, and the judge sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole.
When this investigation started, it was a true whodunit. We weren't certain on who was involved or why they would want Raphael killed.
For such a violent act to be committed over a couple $1,000s and an offhand comment to Roman's wife is unexplainable.
It was a cruel and unusual way of getting back at somebody for being jealous and wanting the things that he had.
Raphael was a generous man, a benevolent man, and they took advantage of that. They knew that he would be willing to help them, and they used that good nature against him and ultimately lured him out there and murdered him.
My whole family feel relieved because we finally got justice from my brother, Raphael, because his dad didn't go in vain.
My feeling and thought about these people was always like, why? Why? What problem did they have with Raphael? I don't know.
Today, the Hernandez-Torres family does everything they can to keep Raphael's memory alive.
Raphael was like a role model for everybody. He was the biggest role model for me because he showed me, even when I'm down, to always get up and fight for what I like.
We just love for Raphael to be remembered as a crazy, funny, flirtatious guy who thought of helping other people. It's always something or someone who remembers Raphael and talk about his life, and we just all start crying. And we wish he was still here, but he's still with us.
To their house without any of their items at night and doesn't show back up again.
This isn't just anybody. This is an Ivy League college student with his whole life in front of him.
Did he run away? Was he injured? Had he been abducted?
Blaze Bernstein disappeared 1 week ago.
Missing while home for winter break.
My dad was just like, we have each other, it's gonna be okay.
And there was an immediate firestorm of attention to this case.
Charlie Puth, who put it out there, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
This is the period in which begins your amateur investigation. You
what's
become a
going on.
sleuth.
We would not have been able to figure it out without the help of kids his age.
I remember showing the police, like, look what I have.
And that's when the whole evening changed.
Blaze Bernstein's phone at that point in time turned off, and I had no more records.
So they've been together, and
Correct.
suddenly Blaze goes dark.
I heard voices raised in the distance somewhere, screaming like...
Blaze's best friend received a text message. I did something really horrible for the story. No one can ever know.
So if you're dealing with a situation like this, you don't want the person who you're hunting to know that you're onto them.
Just help us find my...
Well, the search ramping up today for a Lake Forest teen who disappeared while visiting his family over the holidays.
Blaze Bernstein has been missing since Tuesday night.
Police searching by ground with canines and by air with helicopters.
We're hoping that he's just incapacitated in need of some medical assistance.
Anyone with information should contact the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
Blaze Bernstein.
Blaze Bernstein.
Blaze Bernstein.
favorite pictures here?
The kids like to goof off a lot, and he would dress up. They loved to dress up. They loved to do puppet shows, and this is him in a school play when he was little. And we spent a lot of time at Disneyland, because it's right here in our backyard.
Oh, yeah.
That's us sitting there. It was a great day.
Memories of much happier times for parents. Gideon and Jeannie Bernstein married in 1992. They moved from Los Angeles to Orange County to raise a family. They have 3 kids. The youngest is daughter Bowie, Jay in the middle, and Blaze, the oldest.
We had a lot of fun raising the kids together. It was fun. And no one can take that away from us, so we still own that.
Blaze Bernstein grew up here in the city of Lake Forest. It's an upper middle class bedroom community about an hour south of Los Angeles, home to about 90,000 people.
Growing up in Lake Forest was really nice. It was kind of inland from the coast, like 30-minute drive from the beach.
It was actually a really quiet residential area. Houses were beautiful, a lot of families there.
When we wanted to start a family, we left Los Angeles with the idea that we'd be moving to a safe suburbia, one of the safest places in the country.
And by all accounts, Blaze is this bright, gifted teenager with a sharp wit and a warm heart.
I've known Blaze since we were babies. Blaze as a kid, besides being very high energy, he was really creative, he was very thoughtful.
Blaze was incredibly bright, curious. He was really a Renaissance young man. I mean, he was interested in everything.
Surrounded by family and friends, Blaze was bar mitzvahed in 2011. That's a Jewish celebration of adulthood on a boy's 13th birthday. It was an occasion especially meaningful to his grandmother.
I did know that his grandmother was from Romania and survived the Holocaust.
I really think that Blaze got it. He was proud to be a Jew, humanistic philosophy, caring about the world and understanding the world's only going to change if human beings change it.
But even though Blaze possessed that understanding, it offered no protection from becoming a target of frequent bullying.
Growing up in Lake Forest was not super easy for him. He was bullied every single day on the bus. He just wanted to get out of the public school system.
And it wasn't just the bullying. Even though Blaze is a good student, he longs for something more.
Go, man, go!
Something that challenged him, not just intellectually, but creatively. And he would find it at OSHA.
OSHA is the Orange County School of the Arts. It is a 7th through 12th charter art school.
In order to get into that school, you have to audition, and about 1 in 10 students who audition actually get into this school. So it's very competitive.
Blaze auditioned for OSHA. He was artistic in every single way possible. He was very creative.
His talents going in were performing arts and writing, and he wanted to move into the creative writing department.
We've had students who wound up professional actors, designers, you know, the writers, the whole thing, musicians.
Among the more famous OSHA alumni are actors Pedro Pascal, class of 1993, who starred in the HBO hit The Last of Us, and Matthew Morrison, a 1997 graduate and star in Fox's popular TV series, Glee.
I want you to listen very closely to the lyrics because I really mean what I'm singing.
Once Blaze got to OSHA, he felt like there was a community there for him. He had a lot of friends. He was very social.
I met Blaze when he was a senior in high school. He shared some of his writing with me, and I wrote a letter of advocacy for his application when he applied early decision to Penn because he was a brilliant writer.
Blaze's exceptional talents got him into the University of Pennsylvania, and he moved across the country to Philadelphia as a pre-med freshman in the class of 2020. Was he homesick at the start?
I think that the first semester at school was difficult for him in terms of the social life there. He was used to being in a small school. You know, now he's a little fish in a big sea, and I think that he had to come to grips with that.
When I found out that he was going to an Ivy League, I was like, oh, you know, that makes sense.
At Penn, Blaze got involved in Pen Appetit.
Pen Appetit is a student-run magazine for people who are interested in writing and also interested in food.
He knew that those would be his people.
Our photographer for Pen Appetit, he held a photo shoot where we dressed up in our chef's whites and aprons. We brought whisks and knives. We have photos of him, you know, holding the whisk, being surprised. I mean, he was so helpful, and we're so fortunate to have these photos of him.
It was a Tuesday in January. A 19-year-old Blaze was home for winter break. He was in a really good place and looking forward to second semester of his sophomore year, but not before he treated his family to a special meal.
He was baking butternut squash with, you know, sprigs of thyme that were inside them.
He made a turkey.
And he made a...
He took over my job, more or less. I was on vacation, and he was here.
So dinner broke up, I guess, absolutely normally.
It was a quiet night. Didn't hear anything unusual. You know, I woke up the next day and it was a normal morning.
A normal day until it wasn't.
I got up and Blaze's door was closed, and the housekeeper said, oh, don't wake him, let him sleep in. And I said, okay. Well, I knew I had a dental appointment with him that day, so I decided I'd wait until my yoga class was over to try to contact him so I wouldn't wake him. And I tried getting hold of him, and he wasn't picking up, he wasn't returning my texts. But I went to the dental appointment thinking he would show up, and I immediately called Gideon, and I said he never showed up for his appointment. And he said, well, are you sure he slept at the house last night? And that's when
when we both kind of freaked out.
I yelled, oh my God.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein was last seen Tuesday night.
We're hoping to find him and bring him home safely.
And was like, hey, like, have you heard anything from Blaze? He's not picking up the phone. It's really weird. Like, just let us know if you hear anything. And I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
I was at work, so I'd basically run out of my office and jump in the car and drive home as quickly as I can. And just go run upstairs, and his glasses are there, his wallet's there, his keys are there.
Panicked and confused, the Bernsteins were calling everyone they could think of to see whether anyone had seen or heard from Blaze in the last 12 hours.
And what were they saying?
They didn't know anything.
Nobody knew, you know, where his location was.
Well, I found out that Blaze was missing, and it was just really shocking to me because I was like, there is no way that he could have, like, run away. He wasn't that kind of person.
So this is the period in which begins your amateur
This is when we're trying to figure out what's going on.
You become a sleuth.
Yeah.
Well, we had no idea what was going on.
He hadn't slept in the bed.
And, you know, his bags for going back to school were already packed.
You think, well, hanging out with some kids, you know, other teenagers, and forgot to call home. You have to believe that's a defense against the most awful.
When it became dark outside, I think that's when we started to really be super concerned.
One of the first things the Bernsteins thought of is using the Find My app, which allows users to share their location with others.
So did you have like a follow my friend on the iPhone?
Yes, we did. We had that, and I saw that the location services were turned off.
So we called the sheriff's department.
They came and they were really downplaying it, like, oh, you know, 19-year-olds, they run away sometimes, but they'll be back.
He was adamant that 100% of the time that these kids are out on a booty call or doing something with, he told me.
Of course, we explained that there were some, you know, unique circumstances with regards to, you know, his personal belongings still being here. And so they offered to do a missing persons report.
So a kid disappears without his glasses, his wallet, or his keys. There are people who actually told me about it just in the couple of days after he went missing, who suggested that maybe this was suicide. Did you ever contemplate that?
Never.
Not even close. He was so happy. He was in a great place.
He was in one of the best places I had ever seen him before. That week, he was so happy. He was so excited to go back to school. He was so excited to, like, just have the rest of his life. And so at that point, there was no doubt in my mind. Like, he would never have done that.
Gideon and Jeannie confirmed with Verizon that Blaze hadn't made any recent phone calls. A quick check of his computer revealed no exchanges on iMessage or Facebook DMs. And so with virtually no solid information to go on, the Bernsteins, along with help from their 14-year-old daughter, Bowie, began dipping deeper into Blaze's social media.
We would not have been able to figure it out without the help of kids his age that he grew up with. and our daughter, yes.
I told my parents, I'm like, I can try and help you like find everything that like you need. I'm really good with Snapchat. I knew the names of a lot of his friends, so I was able to like text them and ask them if they knew what was going on.
And that's when the whole evening changed.
Yeah.
When they said, well, what about Snapchat? That's when the light bulb went on. I mean, we were exhausted, but I said, okay, well, let's try and figure out how to get in.
Snapchat is a free mobile messaging application used to share photos, videos, texts. But what's different about the app is that whatever is shared, including text messages, disappears from the recipient's screen after just a few seconds.
We were lucky because we knew his username because he was connected with our daughter. And the password ended up being one of the ones that we had on our iCloud keychain. So we typed the username, and then we tried that password in, and boom, we're in.
Still, getting into Blaze's Snapchat account was only half the battle. Yes, it might contain a critical record of who Blaze may have been in contact with the night he disappeared, but as the Bernsteins discovered, simply viewing the message might also trigger it to vanish.
At the time, Snapchat worked. If you sent a message, it could only be saved if you purposefully saved it, and it could be deleted by the person who sent it, and it only lasts 24 hours if you don't save it.
And there were so many other pitfalls with this. I mean, if you take a screenshot of these communications because you think you're saving them, well, that alerts the person that sent it to you.
The sender gets an alert.
So if you're dealing with a situation like this, you don't want the person who you're hunting to know that you're onto them.
What you're describing is basically dealing with this digital nitroglycerin that at any moment could just blow up in your faces. And this is the most important thing in your lives right now.
I had my daughter next to me, and I said, okay, I need you to save, because I know there's a way that you can save it, but I didn't really know how.
What time is it by now?
I don't know. It's like close to 10 o'clock at night, like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we saw that Blaze gave our address out to somebody.
Did you know who?
We didn't know at the time who it was. We saw the name.
I had absolutely no idea who he was. I was so happy that there was somebody who we could talk to that could just help us find my brother.
Bernsteins didn't know the person Blaze sent his address to, but in the hours ahead, the discovery of that person's identity would turn the desperate search for their son upside down.
Hi, this is Blaze's dad. We really need to know what you know. We can't find him.
This is becoming an urgent issue with trying to figure out what really happened to him, and we're going to really need your help on this because you're the last person that probably saw him.
That was not the person that I really expected.
And doesn't show back up again.
This isn't just anybody. This is an Ivy League college student with his whole life in front of him. With a beautiful life waiting for him.
Hours had passed since anyone had heard or seen Blaze. Did he run away? Was he injured? Had he been abducted? There was no sign of him anywhere. Now, as darkness fell, there was finally a glimmer of hope.
We wanted to make sure that if there was any chance that Blaze was still alive, that we took it. I wanted to ensure that not 1 second was wasted.
And the Bernsteins discovered something else. It was a final text message sent to Blaze at 3 p.m. from his best friend. Hey, I'm really worried about you. Please text me. There was no reply. The Bernsteins frantically reached out to that best friend, who told them Blaze did exchange messages with someone else overnight. Now it seemed that person was their best hope of finding Blaze.
We don't know what the conversations were that led up to his disappearance, so we want that information.
Gideon Bernstein, through his own investigation, found out that there was communication on the Snapchat application. And so he was able to message through direct messaging Sam Woodward.
We didn't know who he was. I was like, oh, we should call him. Like, he definitely knows what's going on. And so I encouraged my dad to call him, and we recorded a call.
We haven't heard from him all day. He missed an appointment today, and then we started getting concerned, and I've been trying to figure things out. So you're the first real clue to the puzzle here.
Yeah, honestly, I'm sorry.
I don't know if my dad told me to record it or if I just had the thought that maybe having any sort of evidence that we could hold on to would be able to help us.
I don't mean to put any pressure on you. I know you're a nice young man, but I'm asking you for help on this if you can, if you've got the ability to do that.
Absolutely. This is, I want to find Blaze as much as you do.
During that call, Sam Woodward told Gideon that Blaze suggested they drive to a nearby park to meet yet another one of his friends, but never mentioned that friend by name.
And he said he invited a third friend to come along. So I said, okay.
I didn't want to speak because I didn't want to get involved, but I was listening and to my dad, just ask him questions and go back and forth.
And then did he get out of the car or what happened?
Yeah, he got out of the car, and I got out of the car too, and I just asked him, who is this guy? And he's just like, you'll find out in a little bit, he's a friend of mine. And then, so I'm just like, okay, Blaze, and I just waited there by the bathroom, and I didn't see where he went.
I was just thinking to myself, this is maybe weirdest, situation that we could be in at this moment. And I remember that phone call went on for a while, too.
I guess I realized, did something happen to him? So I went back. I searched all over for him where I was at the library. I couldn't find him anywhere. And I guess I just figured he might just call me in the morning or just pranking me, but now I'm scared now.
It's a disturbing phone conversation, which now raises more questions for the Bernsteins than it answers.
We were curious to know who this person was, but then we did find out he was a student at OSHA.
20-year-old Sam Woodward and Blaze were former high school classmates at OSHA.
I have known Sam since he was born, kind of grew up alongside of him. I remember excitement, during Sam telling me that he was going to OSHA.
Woodward grew up only 30 minutes away in the wealthy coastal town of Newport Beach.
Sam was joyful. He was a really happy, special kid.
He lived in this house with his parents and a brother who, by all accounts, were devout Catholics and attended church regularly.
Everything we did, all the families we spent time with, were from our church.
I did teach Sam Woodward in acting for the camera in his 10th grade, and I had him for the one semester.
For 10 years, Phil Schwadron taught drama and directing for grades 9 through 11 at OSHA.
He was definitely serious. He didn't crack jokes, didn't laugh a lot, as to my memory.
Sam went to OSHA with me from 7th grade to 10th grade. I would say that he did not necessarily fit into the general OSHA artsy vibe.
We came back for what would have been Sam's 11th grade year, and I said, who have I got this year? And my boss said, yeah, you're going to get them all back except one left the school. Who left the school? Sam Woodward left the school.
I wasn't really surprised that he left. I kind of just thought that he left because he just didn't like it there.
After leaving OSHA, Sam enrolled in Corona Del Mar High School. During that time, he became an Eagle Scout, graduating in 2016. Now, 2 years later, nothing seemed to explain how or why this unlikely pair with seemingly nothing in common ended up together in this park. And now, one safely home, the other nowhere to be found. So now you have this critical piece of information.
Yeah.
Do we immediately call the sheriffs and say,
yes,
we have something?
Yes, we did.
Yep, right away.
And what's their response?
They come over right away.
They came over.
Okay.
And now it was serious.
We just gave him the lead of the last person we knew that he had seen.
I remember taking that call and showing the police, like, look what I have. We talked to somebody who said that they know where my brother is.
When I first saw the missing persons report and I was reading the details, some of those details definitely stuck out. So something told me just deep within me that this was unusual. So my then partner, investigator, Jack Ackerman, and I went to the park, probably right around lunchtime on January 4th.
I had a feeling as a mother, it was my intuition that something very bad had happened.
Bernstein's family realized he was missing. Blaze's sister, Bowie, recorded a phone call between her father and 20-year-old Sam Woodward, a former high school classmate who says he was one of 2 people with Blaze the night he disappeared.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bernstein, but your guess is as good as mine.
Woodward said Blaze made plans for a 3rd person to meet up with them in a neighborhood park that night.
Blaze didn't tell me anything about this guy except that he was from OSHA like us.
Really appreciate you calling me and sharing that info. And is it okay if I reach back out to you if I need some help?
Absolutely. I want to find Blaze as much as you do.
When they were talking about meeting another person, I was like, what other person? Who else would my brother, like, be with?
So you want a water? I got a water. What kind of monster you want?
The next day, Orange County Sheriff's investigators bring in Sam Woodward to ask some questions of their own.
You can leave at any time. You're not under arrest or anything like that, okay? We're just trying to
find Blaze.
Find Blaze. That's it.
As investigators get to know Sam Woodward, they learn that he was living with his parents and working odd jobs.
My goals in life are I just want to start a family. I just want to have enough money to support my kids. I just want to have a wife who loves me and get a good job and go to college.
Woodward says he recently reconnected with Blaze on social media.
He said something like, Sam Woodward. Now, that's a face I haven't seen in a while.
I'm looking for eye contact. I'm looking for his general comfortability to try to gain a sense whether somebody I feel is telling me the truth or telling me a lie.
At some point during the conversation on Snapchat, you decided to meet up.
That is correct.
For Blaze's family, the fact that he went out at all that night was a revelation.
We had dinner actually at the dining room table with everybody.
Here.
He was supposed to fly back to school. So it was going to be the last time my parents were going to see him for quite a while. There was no indication from him that he was going out that night.
During his interview with police, Woodward said that after he picked up Blaze at his house, they drove around for a while, eventually stopping at Borrego Park.
Borrego Park is in the city of Lake Forest. It's a place where you can take your kids. It also has remote hiking trails that stretch for miles.
At some point, somebody exits the car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did he tell you where he was going?
He said he was going to meet the friend that he was talking about.
Just like in that call with Blaze's father, Woodward told officers that Blaze was meeting another friend at the park that night. Woodward says he stayed behind as Blaze walked away and disappeared out of sight.
At one point, I heard voices raised in the distance somewhere, but, I mean, that happens to my neighborhood all the time. You hear, like, girls screaming, like, ah! And all that. And so I didn't really pay much mind to it.
But I wanted him to feel comfortable talking to me, and he was. Woodward says he looked for Blaze, but eventually gave up and went home.
I mean, I don't know what happened to him, but something must have.
All that matters is that we find him and we get him back to his family safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially her talking to his parents, because his parents are really nice people.
After several hours of questioning, Sam Woodward left. But police, they remained suspicious, so they decided to put him under surveillance.
I'm trying to record it right now. There was a large team that was deployed into the field, and we followed him anywhere that he went.
And with his growing cause of concern for Blaze Bernstein comes the glare of the media spotlight. The Blaze Bernstein missing persons case is now big news.
The Orange County Sheriff's Department searched the park, but they haven't seen any signs of Blaze.
Blaze was supposed to be in school this morning.
He was supposed to fly back Sunday, go to class today, but instead he's missing.
I remember going with my dog to Borrego Park before and kind of just like walking around to see like, what if I find him here?
Bowie documented that desperate period of time with pictures and videos posted on her Snapchat.
Our congregation went into high gear. We printed flyers with his name and picture and the facts and who to call, and we put them up on bulletin boards and poles all around the city.
At this point, it's now in the hands of the police.
Mm-hmm.
But you continue to work.
Yes.
Now you take to social media.
Round the clock. You know, it looked like war games in this house. We had terminals all over the dining room table, and we were all just working.
There was an immediate firestorm of attention to this case. We were absolutely inundated with tips from the public. There were hundreds within the first week, and then that grew exponentially.
Some of our contacts were friends with some of the celebrities that were willing to post it on their social media. And so we had the missing persons flyer out for Blaze on, Kobe Bryant's Facebook page, and Charlie Puth, who put it out there, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So it started to catch a lot of attention.
We were spending every minute talking about it. People were filming in our house, interviewing my parents. Nothing like this ever happened where we were.
Any sign of him, any clothing, obviously him. We're hoping to find him, hoping that he's just incapacitated and in need of some medical assistance so that we can get him and bring him home safely.
There was like this team of people with drones, and they were going throughout Whiting Ranch Wilderness Park, where we were concerned maybe my brother was back there, and maybe there was a mountain lion, or maybe like something happened to him and he was missing or lost.
For the fourth night in a row, the Bernstein family will go to sleep without their oldest son at home.
It was clear as the week wore on that it was more and more dire.
There's a lot of pressure, immense pressure to perform.
Then, on January 9th, with Blaze missing for 7 days now, a discovery which upends the case.
Jack and I were teamed up. Jack said, "Dylan."
You heard it in his voice.
I could hear it in his voice.
Those new developments and the mysterious disappearance of an Ivy League student.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein missing while home for winter break.
The Sheriff's Department launched an extensive search with help from the community.
Days had passed since Blaze vanished into the night. The relentless search by police and volunteers had turned up nothing, just more anguish for the Bernsteins and frustration for authorities.
The Orange County Sheriff's Department searched the park, but they haven't seen any signs of Blaze.
We utilized cadaver dogs. We utilized drones. We had been to Borrego Park and searched that park over and over again with a fine-tooth comb.
On January 9th, a week after Blaze went missing, investigators decided to go back to Borrego Park one more time after obtaining cell phone data showing Blaze and Sam Woodward were there together.
And this is a week after Blaze went missing.
Yeah, it led us to this particular area when all of a sudden Blaze Bernstein's phone at that point in time turned off.
So they'd been together, and suddenly Blaze goes dark.
Blaze goes dark, and then Sam Woodward's phone continues. There was a torrential downpour. It was cold, it was raining, everything was wet, everything was muddy. We searched all this area until my partner, Jack, and I came to this area right here.
I saw a spot that looked unusual, so I walked down. There was a large tree branch covering an area that looked a little odd, like the rain had kind of settled some dirt around something. I moved the tree branch, and you could see the left hip and upper left leg area of a human body.
And you knew?
Knew.
Had to be him.
Instantly. In my gut. Without even seeing the face. And I knew that it was Blaze Bernstein.
They must have found his cell phone as well.
We located a broken cell phone about probably 6 inches, 8 inches below where the body was found.
I was sitting in my English class in 8th grade, and the teacher got a call, and he was like, "Bowie, you're gonna go to the office, they need you for something." And I was like, "Oh, good, maybe some good news." And they took me into this room, and I saw my godmother. She was crying, and I looked at her, and she just hugged me, and she said, "They found him, he is dead. Blaze is gone."
To the index in the body of a college student found in Lake Forest, California. Blaze Bernstein had disappeared 1 week ago. The case now a homicide.
That was the end of hope for me.
We started off this journey over a week ago, looking for our son and asking for everyone to help us find Blaze Bernstein. And we just have learned that they have positively identified our son Blaze's body today.
I just felt so numb, like nothing that had happened in my life had mattered anymore. And then when I got home, my dad was just like, he was just defeated, but he just said, like, "It's gonna be okay. Like, we have each other, it's gonna be okay." Sorry.
The specific details of what occurred at Borrego Park are part of the ongoing investigation.
The autopsy revealed injuries which I believe were a result of an extremely violent encounter. Blaze was stabbed 14 times in the left side of his neck, 5 times in the right side of his neck. He was stabbed, in the knee. He had defensive wounds all over his fingers. He was fighting for his life, and probably a surprise attack.
You hear about that many stab wounds. What does it tell you about the person or the mindset of the person who did that?
Hate and rage. Intimate. It was an intimate killing.
It was devastating news for the family and for the community.
My reaction when I heard it was fury, anger, disbelief. I haven't felt those feelings in my life.
As the investigation into Blaze's murder began, hundreds gathered for a vigil in his honor.
We lost one of our sons. I hope that we can all join together and support the Bernstein family.
The funeral was incredibly painful. We had to ask for RSVPs because we could only accommodate here in the building about 11 or 1,200 people. And then there was a public service at the largest space we have in Orange County a few weeks after the funeral, 3,000 seats, and that was full.
I believe most people are good.
Students from Blaze's Performing Arts High School chose to sing Luke Bryan's song, "Most People Are Good."
I see a lot of goodness here, and I hope that we can bring more tolerance, more peace, understanding, and love to everything that we do and make a better world for our children. Thank you.
The community wrapped its arms around the Bernstein family. The park near their house where Blaze played as a child and where his body was found turned into a makeshift memorial with messages of love and support from all over the world.
This is a note somebody left us. Dear Lord, please watch over the Bernstein family and give them strength during this time. Please guide our police department to help them find the person or persons who took Blaze away. we still needed answers, because we didn't have anybody in custody. In my mind, the hunt was still on.
But for investigators, the hunt would become far more complex because they've discovered that the night of the murder, Blaze's best friend received a text message from Blaze's phone saying, quote, "I did something really horrible for the story, but also no one can ever know," end quote. Blaze's friend responds, "What story?" but gets nothing back.
That was the last text message that was sent from his phone.
The last text message from the phone of a murder victim is always going to be of critical importance to a homicide investigator.
We are 6.5 years since my son was killed.
Blaze is ready. Blaze the trail.
We are all going through our own personal hell right now.
Blaze Bernstein was found with 28 stab wounds.
You hear about that many stab wounds. What does it tell you about the person or the mindset of the person who did that?
A lot of anger somewhere from within, and he took it out on Blaze Bernstein.
Did I introduce him to something that later on came back to haunt us all?
And not only was this just a murder, now we're starting to see a bigger picture.
What do you make of the fact that it's very possible that a neo-Nazi killed Blaze in the United States?
He's the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. This can happen anywhere.
There was almost like a gasp from some people.
Police believe they know who killed Blaze Bernstein.
Were you planning to kill him that night?
I hope that we can all join together and support the Bernstein family.
We're hoping for better results, but yesterday afternoon, sheriff's investigators did find the body of Blaze Bernstein.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein was first reported missing by his family on January 3rd, 2018. But after a week-long search, he was found dead in a park near his parents' Orange County, California home.
As this investigation moves from search and rescue to a homicide investigation, we ask for your continued support in providing tips and information to the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
As investigators search for answers about who had killed Blaze and why, his parents Jeannie and Gideon flew east to Philadelphia to begin a grim task: cleaning out Blaze's apartment on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. The grief-stricken Bernstein family invited us to go with them for this emotional and difficult journey.
This is the apartment building that my son moved into. He's on.
Let's first look at his mail.
5 days before he came home to California.
It's been hard especially for Jeannie, to come here, having to go and, basically clean up your child's life after they're gone.
And the kitchen was meticulous. I mean, he had every appliance and everything. I loved his apartment. It was so beautiful. It was so Blaze.
This is the Whisk sweatshirt that my brother got. He was an editor for the Pen Appetit magazine. We were going through his closet and we found it, and I was like, I'm gonna take that.
We had an opportunity to meet Blaze's friends. We will be here for you forever, and we appreciate your friendship.
I'm delighted that Blaze had them in his life, because I know that they all made him very happy.
You would have loved this. He used to wear this all the time. I know.
Oh, that's my dad.
Blaze was someone that you can trust with anything, and I trusted him with my life. It was the parent that Blaze was figuring out himself, whether it be religion or sexuality or experience.
At what point as parents did you realize that Blaze was gay?
I had an idea about it when he was probably early high school. I saw something on a phone or that he didn't want me to see, and it kind of confirmed a suspicion that I had, and I think he knew that I had seen it.
We actually had a conversation while he was back at college, and he was telling us essentially, yeah, I am gay, but I just don't want to talk about it.
Did people at school know? Was he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think his friends knew at school.
Because Blaze was so open about his sexuality with me, I feel like that definitely gave him a better foundation. So if he was to go to his parents and his family and open up about that part of his life, he would have known that we were all there for him.
You noticed that too?
I took a picture of it.
In the mirror.
As a mother of a gay man, I am proud to be that.
Blaze is ready. Blaze the trail.
You feel like, like an artist that you have spent your lifetime sculpting this amazing piece of artwork, and then it gets destroyed. And so here we are. Our artwork is gone. Hard to accept.
Back home in California, the investigation continued, and the focus remained on Blaze's former high school classmate, Sam Woodward, the person who admitted to driving with him to Borrego Park.
We have interviewed that friend several times. That person is not in custody, and we are not prepared to comment on persons of interest at this time.
When Orange County Sheriff's investigator Dylan Jansen first spoke with Woodward the day after Blaze was reported missing, he says Woodward seemed nervous and told different versions of where at Borrego Park he and Blaze went that night. And Jansen says Woodward had what appeared to be injuries on his hands.
Those cuts in your hands look pretty gnarly. I mean, how do you think you got those from the fight club?
Sam said he was involved with a fight club. He said that he sustained these cuts to his hands after somebody was clawing at him during one of the fights.
When I swung at him, I kind of fell on my ass. And I usually try and have my hands to break my fall for me, and so I landed on some rocks.
I've heard of fight clubs, but I didn't believe it. Anytime that Sam Woodward was walking around the station, when he touched the doorknobs, he would cover his hands with the sleeves of his sweatshirt. Is he attempting to cover up fingerprints? Is he attempting to cover up DNA? It was definitely something that stood out.
Nearly a week after that interview with police, when Blaze's body was found, investigators went looking for Sam Woodward once again.
Investigators said that when they searched Woodward's bedroom, there was some damning evidence. They found a knife with blood on the handle and on the tip of the blade. They also found bloodstains on a sleeping bag outside his window and on the driver's side of his car.
The knife that was found in Sam Woodward's room, the areas of the vehicle that had apparent blood in it, the sleeping bag that was found on the side of Sam Woodward's home, they were all tested for DNA, and those results concluded to be the blood from Blaze Bernstein.
With this new evidence, police are now ready to make an arrest.
Under arrest, 20-year-old Samuel Lincoln Woodward suspected of killing Blaze Bernstein.
Police say DNA evidence led them to arrest the 19-year-old's former high school classmate.
I remember thinking to myself, that's the guy that was on the phone.
I want to find Blaze as much as you do.
At the time, I thought, I wonder what my brother was thinking before he died. I wonder if he was in pain, or I wonder if he could have saved himself. I think once Sam was arrested, I knew my brother didn't have a chance.
But something authorities were playing pretty close to the vest was motive. Why would Sam Woodward want to kill Blaze Bernstein? As the days unfolded, investigators would confront a possibility they hadn't even originally contemplated.
Not only was this murder, we're starting to see a bigger picture. It was absolutely shocking.
Office filed one felony count of murder against 20-year-old Newport Beach resident Samuel Woodward.
Before joining ABC News, I spent 26 years as a deputy district attorney in the Orange County DA's office. And for a time, I was one of the prosecutors consulting on this case. Sam Woodward was taken into custody 10 days after Blaze went missing and 3 days after his body was found.
There was the victim's DNA on property that was in the control of the defendant.
Well, I remember that moment well. I was sitting in my room. I think I was watching it on television, and I just thought to myself, it's finally happened. Now what?
With the knowledge of how Blaze was murdered, Now, an excruciating reality for the Bernsteins, the focus turned to why.
Blaze was stabbed nearly 20 times in the neck. Using a knife to kill is particularly violent because you have to be up so close. That many wounds says this was likely a crime of rage or of passion, more personal than your typical murder. So as a prosecutor, my next question would be, who is Sam Woodward and what was his relationship with Blaze?
I had no clue why Blaze would be meeting with Sam. You know, they were never really friends in school. I just know that everybody else got bad vibes from him.
Woodward grew up in Newport Beach, the wealthy suburb south of LA in Orange County. He was a Cub Scout and Eagle Scout, and as we know, Woodward spent part of his high school years at OSHA, the same elite art school where Blaze had also been a student.
It took me a couple of minutes as I watched the footage. It started to dawn on me, oh my God, that's the Sam I taught. Every kid in my acting for the camera class, it was film work. So I said, everybody pick your favorite movie and bring me a scene or a monologue from that film. And he said, I want to do something from the Army. So I gave him Brad Pitt's speech in Inglourious Bastards.
As a bushwhacking guerrilla army, we're going to be doing one thing and one thing only: killing Nazis.
The provocative Quentin Tarantino World War II thriller is about a plan to assassinate Nazi leaders by a band of Jewish soldiers.
It weighs heavily on me that I introduce him to something that later on came back to haunt us all.
A.C. Thompson, an investigative reporter for ProPublica, uncovered some disturbing information when digging into Woodward's background.
When I started reporting on Sam Woodward, what really stuck out to me was this. Sam Woodward was a member of the Atomwaffen Division, which was a neo-Nazi terrorist group that aimed to bring down the U.S. government and incite a race war.
Race war now! Atomwaffen posted violent propaganda videos online to spread a message of hate and to help recruit new members.
The Atomwaffen Division was a neo-Nazi group that existed from about 2015 to 2020. They were inspired by Charles Manson. They were also inspired by Tim McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber. They weren't interested in protests or marching in the streets. They wanted to kill people.
That organization was hell-bent on destroying America within, taking down the system.
My reporting team and I got access to thousands and thousands of private chat messages that were between members of the Atomwaffen group. Sam Woodward was one of the people in these chats.
Writing in the chats under the alias Saboteur, Woodward spewed anti-Semitic, anti-gay, misogynist hate.
When we executed the search warrants on several electronic devices, including computers and cell phones and laptops, there were thousands of images of white supremacist propaganda and hundreds of images to include the Atomwaffen Division.
But Woodward's interest in Atomwaffen apparently went beyond just talk in a chat room. Also found on Sam Woodward's devices was a picture with James Mason. He's a neo-Nazi whose writings Atomwaffen members describe as a main influence on the group, along with a photo of Woodward in a skull mask giving the Nazi salute.
Now we're starting to see a bigger picture. Not only was this just a murder, there's a high probability that Sam Woodward killed Blaze Bernstein because he was homosexual, possibly because he was Jewish, or a combination of both.
I'm here to announce the Orange County District Attorney's Office will file an amended complaint, a hate crime enhancement accusing Woodward of intentionally committing first-degree murder, due in whole or in part to Blaze's sexual orientation. We will prove that Woodward killed Blaze because Blaze is gay.
What do you make of the fact that it's very possible that a neo-Nazi killed Blaze in the United States?
Yeah, if that's the case, that's going to be the biggest tragedy of this story.
He's the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. This can happen anywhere. You aren't safe from this type of hate.
But something else that's still not adding up: how were Blaze Bernstein and Sam Woodward connected? They were both from Orange County, but Blaze, a young gay Jewish man, and Woodward, a member of a neo-Nazi group, seemed to have nothing else in common. Why were they together that night in the first place? Sam Woodward would have his day in court with a stunning new look and a surprising defending Blaze Bernstein in January 2018. It would take 6 years for him to face a jury. Woodward was charged with first-degree murder, a hate crime. He pleaded not guilty.
19-year-old Blaze Bernstein was stabbed repeatedly and killed back in 2018, and now, 6 years later, that trial finally begins today.
By the time the trial was starting, I'd already left the DA's office, but I was watching the proceedings closely.
Still, no one seems prepared for the Sam Woodward that has led into Judge Kimberly Menager's courtroom.
There was almost like a gasp from some people, just to kind of that visceral reaction to kind of seeing him. Long, dark, stringy hair, long, dark beard, covering his face. It's hard not to kind of draw mental comparisons to Charles Manson.
Blaze Bernstein was found with 28 stab wounds.
Senior Deputy District Attorney Jennifer Walker's opening statements tell the story of a young man who they say set out to murder 19-year-old Blaze Bernstein in cold blood. That hate crime charge, she explains, that was brought because prosecutors believed the evidence showed Sam Woodward murdered Blaze because he was gay, but not because he was Jewish.
You'll see the cell phone evidence, the defendant's words, the defendant's hate.
But in his opening statements, defense attorney Ken Morrison did something we definitely don't see every day by making a stunning admission.
My client, Sam Woodward, was responsible for that death. The why is the single most important issue you will need to decide.
This is no longer a trial about guilt or innocence. The question now becomes, did Woodward plan the killing because of a hatred of gay people? Was it premeditated? If the jury agrees, that could mean a first-degree murder conviction and most likely a sentence of life without the possibility of parole.
Morrison argues for a lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter and an acquittal of the hate crime allegation, which would result in a reduced sentence and a chance for parole.
The evidence will show that Blaze Bernstein's sexual orientation had absolutely nothing to do with the reason he was killed.
Jennifer Walker calls her first witnesses, Blaze Bernstein's parents. Gideon Bernstein now faces down the man who killed his son as he recounts the painful moments when the family first realized that Blaze was missing.
You remember where you were when you got the phone call?
I do remember that, yes.
And why does that stand out in your mind?
Because it was the beginning of hell.
Jennifer Walker then brings an Orange County Sheriff's deputy to the stand to describe what he watched Sam Woodward do on January 5th, 2018, after police decided to put Woodward under surveillance.
What did you observe?
I observed him what appeared to be cleaning his vehicle, the interior and exterior.
He had in his possession what looked like a spray bottle of cleaning product.
Scrubbing the driver's side door.
It was very strange to us. What was he cleaning? Why?
Jennifer Walker then digs into the heart of her hate crime argument, portraying Sam Woodward as somebody who changed from Eagle Scout to neo-Nazi.
He had developed his long-standing beliefs against Jewish people and gay people and started joining groups that espoused the views that he had.
This is where Woodward's involvement in the extremist group Atomwaffen becomes key for the prosecution. Investigators say they found these images on Woodward's personal devices.
The prosecution calls an ex-member to the stand whose voice has been altered and his face obscured at the request of the court. He's also using an alias.
Good morning, Mr. Murphy.
Prosecutors allege that Woodward sought out the group, and once there, the fires of his hatred were further stoked as he attended multiple meetings.
So this summer of 2017, Austin, Texas, tell us what you and Sam Woodward did.
We took propaganda photos. That involved us throwing up Nazi salutes. Put the Adam Walken logo on the photos, you know, for propaganda purposes.
The prosecution also presents what Woodward himself labels Sam's diary of hate, emails he sent to himself over a 7-month period in 2017.
The prey that the defendant had chosen was gay people. And he kept a diary of his feelings and intentions.
And who did the prosecution allege that he was, quote, hunting? Well, they say that Sam Woodward had been visiting online dating sites to connect with gay men.
Downloaded Grindr so I could send photos of their fellow sodomites getting killed and tell them that they're going to be next. They're terrified, LMAO. This is too much fun. They think they're going to get hate crimed, and it scares the out of them.
And this is how the prosecution claims Sam Woodward targeted Blaze while he was hunting for victims on the dating app Tinder. The two men first connected on the app in June of 2017, 3 years after they'd been classmates at OSHA. And then again, the night Blaze disappeared. The last exchange is allegedly what led to their encounter in Borrego Park.
And then here is where the luring starts. And the defendant says, "Is anyone near you right now? Because I just wanted to say." And Blaze says, "Nope." "Nope, what? No one is near me." And the defendant says, "I might make an exception for you." And the defendant says, "Look, do you have Snap?" And then we have Blaze snapping his address to the defendant at 10:37 p.m. on January 2nd of 2018.
According to prosecutors, the trap had been set and Blaze stumbled right into it that night when he agreed to meet up with Sam Woodward.
But when it's the defense's turn to present its case, jaws will drop in the courtroom because the star witness will be the defendant himself, Sam Woodward. And the crux of the defense's case, that Sam had a secret and would go to any lengths to hide it, even if he had to kill.
He kept saying something that I can only remember as, "I got you already. I got you, I got you."
Today we're going to another day of court. It's definitely a challenge emotionally and mentally to get up and just have to go and do this.
We are 6.5 years since my son was killed. We are all going through our own personal hell right now. The prosecution rested last week, and we're now listening to defense witnesses.
Sam Woodward's defense attorney, Ken Morrison, is making his case.
Sam did not hate Blaze for any reason.
Remember, the defense has acknowledged that 26-year-old Sam Woodward killed Blaze Bernstein, but they insist it was neither a premeditated murder nor a hate crime.
You will also hear lots of additional evidence that helps to explain why this homicide was committed.
But just as Morrison starts laying out his case, the defense team is dealt a blow. The judge rules that some evidence is inadmissible, including that mysterious last text message sent from Blaze's phone on the night of the murder. "I did something really horrible for the story, but also no one can ever know."
The jury then hears how Sam Woodward was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, which the defense says hindered his ability to make and maintain friendships and contributed to Sam's acute sense of isolation and loneliness.
This helps to explain how starved Sam was for the camaraderie, the brotherhood, and acceptance and how profoundly vulnerable he was to recruitment into groups like Atomwaffen.
The defense claims Sam Woodward's participation in Atomwaffen wasn't as much about ideology as it was about connecting with others and just having a good time. Morrison calls former Atomwaffen member Tyler Wiesing to the stand.
So would you characterize the camp as very serious in terms of the ideology, goals, training, that sort of thing?
That was the intent and the image. In the reality, it was a bunch of people getting drunk and not taking things seriously.
As for those Tinder messages, well, the prosecution argued that Sam Woodward was online to hunt and terrorize victims. Morrison says that never happened, and he argues that in this case, it was Blaze who pursued Sam.
June 15, 2017, Blaze Bernstein saw Sam's profile on Tinder, and Blaze Bernstein initiated the first contact with Sam Woodward, not the other way around. And then Sam says, "Thing is, you're not too shabby looking yourself, Blaze." Blaze says, "Ah, well, thanks, Sam. That's sweet of you." An emoji. Sam says, "Yeah, you're cute, TBH, to be honest."
According to the defense, Sam Woodward was repressing his own feelings of homosexuality, which could help explain the reason behind, quote, Sam's diary of hate.
He's trying to kind of keep this as like this hidden away part of his life, that these hate diary entries are simply narrative constructs to cover up that part of him should Atomwaffen members get suspicious.
Morrison argues that Sam Woodward was tortured by his sexual identity because of what he claims he heard at home. He calls Woodward's mother, Michelle, to the witness stand.
Ms. Woodward, was it ever communicated to your children that homosexuality is a sin?
Yes.
And who communicated that?
My husband.
The defense calls James Markle to the stand, please.
Family friend James Markle tells the court about an incident he says Michelle recounted to him about Sam's father, Blake.
Was there any particular word that Michelle Woodward told you that she would hear Blake call Sam?
He would say he would say gay.
But when called to the stand, Sam Woodward's father, Blake, denies using any homophobic slurs.
Would you make derogatory remarks about homosexual people in Sam's presence?
No.
But ultimately, the case would hinge on the testimony of the one person who was there the night Blaze Bernstein was killed, Sam Woodward.
The defense is calling on Samuel Woodward.
For the defense, calling their client to testify is a risky move. It can be viewed as a Hail Mary or as a very shrewd tactic to play on the jury's sympathies.
And Mr. Woodward, can I ask you if you're able to move the hair out of your face a little bit?
Sam Woodward's defense attorney, Ken Morrison, takes Woodward through the story of his life, arriving at a key question.
Sam, was there ever a time in your life that you can recall where you wondered whether you might be gay?
No. No, I can't say really there was, no.
This may have just blown up Ken Morrison's defense, which hinges on the argument that Sam Woodward was struggling with his sexual identity. And that will become hugely important because of what Morrison is about to argue Blaze did that night, which he says provoked the attack.
You will learn that Blaze Bernstein was not killed because of who he was, but because of what he did to Sam Woodward after they met up.
What will Sam Woodward say happened that night?
When you drove to Blaze Bernstein's house to pick him up, Sam, were you planning to kill him?
In the trial of Sam Woodward, and defense attorney Ken Morrison is questioning his client about the night that he and Blaze ended up in Borrego Park.
I'm pretty sure I said we should hang out at some point, or rather it'd be cool if you wanted to, and Right after that, he said to me that he was actually free this night, right now. And at that point, I said, all right, cool.
Sam Woodward testifies that after picking up Blaze near his house, the two men eventually arrived at the park. There, on a bench, Woodward claims the night took a dark turn.
Woodward said he smoked some marijuana, was starting to kind of get drowsy, kind of nod off. He feels something and opens his eyes.
I saw a hand right on my crotch with my pants unbuckled. I looked right up and I saw him, and he had his phone in his hand. He kept saying something that I can only remember as, I got you already. I got you, I got you, I got you, I got you, hypocrite. I heard him maybe use the word outed in the same sentence. I couldn't exactly remember.
If Sam Woodward is to be believed, Blaze was threatening him, and that's what made Woodward snap.
What, if anything, did you think he was doing with his cell phone?
I thought he might photograph me. I thought he might send text messages. I thought he might be trying to record me.
So at any point in time, did you see Blaze actually appear as though he was texting any messages?
Yes.
Sam Woodward says his fear was that there had been an image or video taken and that his family would learn about it.
I grew up in a home with my mother and my father and my brother. Loved them more than I can almost speak about. My father, though, if he'd heard about something like that got out somehow, I couldn't fathom that.
Sam Woodward then describes how he says things escalated.
I found one of the knives that I had used to open up the container of marijuana. I just kept driving and driving and driving and driving the knife down.
When you say driving the knife down, Sam, were you stabbing Blaze?
At that point, yes, I was.
In an effort to try to dispel any argument that this was a hate crime, Morrison asks Sam Woodward two final questions.
When you drove to Blaze Bernstein's house to pick him up, Sam, were you planning to kill him that night?
No, not at all.
Did you hate him because he was gay?
No, not at all.
But now, here's where the gamble of putting Woodward on the stand could either pay off or lose big.
Okay, so walk me through it, sir.
On cross-examination, Jennifer Walker attacks Woodward's credibility.
The left side of his neck was closest to you, right? If he's sitting to your right?
Everything was a blur.
Well, how did you stab him 14 separate times on the left side of his neck when he was sitting right next to you?
I can't remember.
And how did you stab him 5 separate times on the right side of his neck when he was sitting to your right?
I can't remember.
After a trial full of fits and starts, spanning almost 3 months, the case goes to the jury. The jury deliberates for about 8 hours.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Samuel Woodward, guilty of the crime of first-degree murder.
It's an emotional moment, even for the court clerk.
A felony and violate. Just 1 sec.
Sure.
I've prosecuted a lot of murder cases, and I can't say I've ever seen a court clerk react like that.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find it to be true that the defendant, Samuel Woodward, committed hate crime, first-degree murder.
We are thrilled with the verdict, which holds Samuel Woodward accountable for the brutal, violent, painful murder of our son. Justice has been served. Thank you.
Breaking news now, an emotional afternoon in an Orange County courtroom. The sentencing has just been handed down for the man convicted in the hate crime murder of Blaze Bernstein.
This time the court does sentence the defendant to state prison for the term prescribed by law, which is life without the possibility of parole.
The jury said that they saw this as a hate crime and that hate was not going to get you anywhere in this world.
In the 7 years since Blaze Bernstein's murder, the family of Sam Woodward has never spoken out beyond their court testimony. But the Bernsteins say the Woodwards did leave something for them back in 2018.
Have they reached out to you, by the way?
Yeah.
We found a note under our doormat.
What did it say, this note?
Orange County Sheriff's investigator Sergeant Dylan Jansen knows Borrego Park a lot better than he would like to.
In the initial days of the investigation, how many hours would you say you spent at this park here?
Countless. I spent a lot of time over here just looking, thinking, analyzing, what was the truth, what's not the truth.
We may never know exactly what happened the night Blaze was murdered, or what that last text message meant. But Sergeant Jansen can answer one question based on the evidence.
That cell phone, even though it was damaged, we were able to send it to various companies to restructure the cell phone and extract any and all information on there.
Were there any pictures of that night?
No. No.
This park is pretty meaningful for you.
So we stop here and go check out the garden of rocks that are now over in the corner.
Do you feel that you get a little bit of closure each time you put one more rock down?
I don't even know what closure is. You lose a child. I think maybe closure for me will be just being able to look at all of these things and be happy.
Almost 7 years after I walked in Borrego Park with the Bernsteins, the memorial of painted stones honoring their son has blossomed. Jeannie and Gideon have both moved away from Foothill Ranch, but they tell me they still find solace in this place.
In the Jewish tradition, it is a thing that you put rocks at a gravesite.
And there's a permanence to it.
It gives us some feeling of connection to people, the people that will hear our story and understand the importance of eradicating hate in this world. This is about love.
Since 2018, the Bernsteins have been building a movement. They call it Blaze It Forward.
The Blaze It Forward campaign was based off of the idea that as a community, we can make a difference and we can change the way that this world works. We were able to take that in my brother's honor to try and encourage people to just do one good thing every day.
They participate in local pride parades, and Jeannie hosts a podcast featuring people doing good in the world. Sam Woodward's parents, Blake and Michelle Woodward, never responded to an interview request with ABC News, but they did write a letter to the court, submitted at sentencing. It reads, in part, "In the past, you could look into Sam's eyes and be surprised at the level of sensitivity and warmth. It's one of his best traits. Now, he's too vulnerable to let you look him in the eyes. He committed a crime, but he is not a person without value, unworthy of respect."
Speaking about the Woodward parents, they left a note at your house in 2018, right?
They did. At the time, I thought it was infuriating because one of the things that they said in that letter was that that both families are going through a hard time right now. I don't think that she had any idea how hard of a time we were having.
But there's another letter that holds more meaning for Jeannie and Gideon, discovered after the trial, tucked among the colorful painted stones of Blaze's memorial.
This is a copy of a note that was left for us in the park by one of the jurors. She basically says in this letter to Blaze that she's really sorry that she didn't get to know him.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to class today.
So Blaze would be 27. Do you ever think about what he would be like today, had he lived?
He'd be doing something fantastic. I know that about Blaze, and he'd be making people happy. That's what he did. Blaze is always on my mind. I think about him from the minute I wake up until I go to bed at night. He was my person.
You take it. It's on record.
He was a piece of man. He's gone. But I'm still here, and whatever he's done to make an impact on this world is what we're going to leverage and try to make sure that people never forget about our son and what happened.
I remember working at the pub and started hearing rumours.
Mum, dad, 2 children slaughtered in their own home.
Massive shock to the local community that something so awful could happen to such a lovely family.
This was an all-out slaughter of 4 people. No one really knew what had happened, how it had happened, or why it had happened.
Are the family involved in some way with organised crime? Is this a contract killing because it's so brutal?
A family wiped out and a man going missing leaves a community asking questions.
Detectives were left pondering, was this missing persons case linked to a quadruple murder case?
There was a point in this inquiry where I was thinking if we didn't have bad luck, we'd have no luck at all.
You didn't feel safe in the village?
Police were playing catch-up.
I can't think of another crime of this magnitude in the history of Northamptonshire Police.
In the beautiful Northampton countryside lies the quaint village of Wootton.
It's really lovely. Everyone knows everyone, so it's really chatty, really friendly. Yeah, it is nice, especially to have kids around here.
I love it. I know it's an old village. The church is very, very old, and we're in a conservation area, so people around here are very, very friendly. People have lived here for a long time. There are some families in the village who've been in the village a long, long time, so I think it says an awful lot. Very easygoing, yeah. Good community.
Wootton has a great community spirit. It has a lot of buildings, facilities, open space, considering it's an urban parish. There's the new building, Wootton Fields and Simpson Manor, and then there's the old village, which has got all its old traditional spirit with the church and the old village hall. You've got the Yeoman of England pub in the village, Working Men's Club, you've got a community centre, they put on events, they do a food market every Saturday. Everyone helps each other out, everyone looks out for each other.
So Wootton was the perfect place for Jeff and Helen Ding, originally from East China, to raise their 2 daughters, Zing and Alice.
Jeff was a university lecturer up in Manchester, very educated man in the science field. Helen worked at the local school teaching languages. They had 2 daughters, Zing, also known as Nancy, and then had a younger daughter, Alice, of whom Nancy was very protective.
Family life was busy, especially as Jeff split his week between home and his work at Manchester Metropolitan University.
I believe Jeff was a senior lecturer here, specialisms in polymers, so synthetic materials. His teaching was at first-year level. We all pride ourselves, giving support to our students, but Jeff really took that to a fantastic level. He spent most of his time with students, helping out with various problems that they might have with their studies, for instance. He was actually a hall warden in a halls of residence just on campus. I don't think I ever saw him once lose his temper or ever have any issues with staff. Very easy to get on with.
The Ding's eldest daughter, 18-year-old Zing, was an accomplished musician and preparing to go to university.
Zing came over as being very self-assured, very calm, very capable. She had a wicked sense of humour, and she was quite a live wire. But she managed to be friendly to everybody she met. She was good at everything. She was a remarkable student at school, and she'd already accepted a place at Nottingham University to study medicine.
Like her sister, 12-year-old Alice was also a keen musician.
Alice was quite bubbly. She had one of those smiles that would light up any room. A bit of a cheeky smile, but she was absolutely delightful. Very outgoing. You could tell she was the whole package as a violinist. I think both of the girls had a very strong work ethic, and no doubt that come down to them from their parents.
Both Jeff and Helen worked tirelessly to create a warm and inviting home for their daughters and their friends.
Really welcoming. You could literally turn up and they would invite you in for dinner. They were just such a good family. Like, you would want your kids to be friends with them because they were just the best.
They all seemed very happy and very settled. They loved that family home as well. You know, that was a place they really liked to be. And it is a very nice neighbourhood, I have to say.
But this neighbourhood will never be the same after one fateful bank holiday in 2011.
It was a big holiday weekend. We'd had the royal wedding.
When William and Kate got married, the whole of the parish here was alive with street parties, union flags everywhere, bunting, a lot of celebration. It was a super happy place.
I was actually working in the pub on the royal wedding. We opened early for it. Not many people actually came in because loads of people around the village were actually throwing street parties.
As the bank holiday weekend comes to a close, neighbours of the Ding family become concerned as they haven't been seen all weekend.
One of the family was due to attend something and they didn't turn up, and then a neighbour went round to see if they were okay and see where they were. The house was in relative darkness, no reply at the front door. That neighbour thankfully was a little bit persistent and went round to the back of the house.
Peering through the kitchen window, the neighbour glimpses what appears to be a body on the floor.
The police are alerted and clearly force entry to the premises.
As the officers enter the house, they discover not one, but two bodies.
Jeff is slumped by a radiator in the kitchen with multiple stab wounds. Helen is by the entrance door between the hall and the kitchen, and she's got multiple stab wounds.
The officers head upstairs and step into a harrowing scene.
Alice and Zing were up in the bedroom. The two girls are on the bed and they've both received a number of fatal stab wounds. You know, it was pretty horrendous.
With 4 members of the same family dead, detectives' first instinct is that the culprit could be amongst the deceased.
Nobody knows the reason that this family have ended up dead. One possible scenario is, and it does happen, is the murder-suicide aspect, where a family member has, for whatever reason, killed the other family members and then taken their own life.
With such a heavy police presence, rumours quickly spread across the village.
I remember working at the pub at the time and started hearing rumours, customers coming in saying something really bad had happened, but we were all still unsure of the extent of what had happened.
I first heard through a friend who I live near locally, whose daughter was very good friends with one of the young ladies. So it was horrific locally to everybody. The fact that the family had been there for a while and been not discovered was horrific, and just a massive shock to the local community that something so awful could happen to such a lovely family. I wouldn't like to speculate on people's opinions, but to me personally, it felt a bit targeted.
Little did the villagers of Wootton know the scale of the crime that's been committed on their doorstep.
The murder of the Dean family was probably one of the most horrendous crimes I've ever been asked to.
In the village of Wootton, police have discovered a family of 4 dead. Detective Superintendent Glyn Timmins is put in charge of the investigation.
I was at home on Sunday the 1st of May, enjoying the bank holiday weekend, and my colleague alerted me to the fact that he'd been called to the scene of potentially a multiple murder scene.
46-year-olds Jeff and Helen Ding and their 2 daughters, 18-year-old Zing and 12-year-old Alice, have all suffered fatal knife wounds.
I think what you're trying to do initially is you're trying to rationalise it in terms of what's a likely motive. Why would a family be murdered? You could be looking for a crazed, maniacal killer who's randomly struck at a household. You could be looking for aggravated burglars where it's gone horribly, horribly wrong. Are the family involved in some way with organised crime? Is this a contract killing because it's so brutal? You never stop searching your mind for options and potential and possibilities.
In Wootton, the heavy police presence has drawn in local reporter Daniel Owens.
It was around about 10 o'clock on the Sunday night when I first arrived on the scene. There was no information coming from the police. We couldn't speak to officers who were inside the house. All we were getting was the people outside guarding the scene, and they weren't telling us anything. I met a couple of lads down there who knew the family vaguely, and they seemed quite upset at what they'd heard. And there were theories doing the rounds that it was potentially a murder-suicide situation. When you have a man and a woman dead in the same house, one killed the other, turned the knife on himself, etc. And that was certainly something that we expected to be exploring.
But in a fast-moving investigation, it's quickly established that the culprit isn't likely to be one of the family.
Clearly, because of the violence that had been used, it was just obvious to the officers that this was an all-out slaughter of 4 people. The big demand at that stage is, well, there are 2. The first one is the preservation of the scene and to make sure that you extract and harvest every centimetre of forensic evidence that you can get hold of. And the other one is to start thinking about who's done this and why.
With a murderer in their midst, police are also aware that villagers could be at risk.
The overriding factor in terms of the community is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear that it might happen again, fear that there's a killer on the loose, that their homes and their loved ones and their families aren't safe.
Police held a press conference and details started to emerge, and we knew this was a story that we'd never seen the likes of before.
For villagers, the news turns what was a happy bank holiday to celebrate the marriage of Prince William and Kate into a tragic event on their own doorstep.
When everybody's enjoying a day, and it was a beautiful day, it's hard to believe that something so vicious can happen. We were just stunned, really stunned. You can't believe it, because you cannot understand, A, why anybody could do that to a family and to children. Yeah, it was a bit of a shock.
Well, I was walking to my grandparents and I saw there was a bit of commotion going on the street. I was about 2 streets away. So, yeah, it was very weird. I don't think I wanted to leave the house for a while. I think it made everyone a bit more cautious about what was going on.
People were very on edge. I mean, I wouldn't walk on my own anywhere. I think you didn't feel safe in the village anymore. You don't ever feel like something like that's ever going to happen in a little village.
I was absolutely devastated. I really could not get my head around it. It was a very, very sad day. Not just for me, but for all of my colleagues, for the whole community that we work in here.
As the community mourns, police need to establish exactly when the Ding family were killed.
The initial response is pretty much routine. You're starting to set up initial house-to-house inquiries, you know, not structured formal ones, but sort of people knocking doors. Have you seen anything strange or suspicious? You know, has there been any screams, shouts, noises?
But the neighbours haven't seen or heard anything.
Effectively, we've got 4 people who've been slaughtered in their own home and very little else by way of information.
As each member of the family is examined, It's apparent that whoever was responsible carried out a frenzied attack.
The results of the post-mortem showed the true extent of the brutality involved. The family were subjected to a total of 51 stab wounds between them, with Jeff and his wife killed in the kitchen and the girls killed upstairs in their bedroom trying to hide from their killer.
In the house, a possible murder weapon is found. It's been cleaned and left on the kitchen worktop. And as police comb the scene for clues, they find a puzzling item in the Ding's letterbox. It's a calling card from West Midlands Police, and it's been left just hours before the bodies were discovered.
The visit took place on the Sunday morning, quite early on. Obviously, no reply at the front door, but it's early on a Sunday morning. Not unreasonable for people to be in bed. It's a bank holiday weekend. The officers got no reply.
Why had the police visited the Ding's home early that morning? Who did they want to speak to? And was this in some way connected to their murders?
Someone I'd worked with previously was a detective superintendent in West Midlands. He rang me to say, was I aware of this missing persons inquiry?
Police had visited the Dings in relation to a missing persons inquiry, that of 52-year-old An Zhangdu.
An Zhangdu was a native of China and came over here in the late 90s with his wife, and he ran a herbal medicines business which he ran with the Ding family for some time.
An Zhang had left his home on the bank holiday Friday, 2 days before his business partners, the Ding's bodies, were discovered.
An Zhangdu left his wife at home watching the wedding while he boarded a train to Birmingham, where he went into his business premises.
He was going to open up the shop, albeit a bank holiday, albeit Kate and William's wedding. He'd gone in to do some work. When An Zhangdu didn't return from work, his wife, she started to become concerned about him, where he might be, what state he was in.
It was totally out of character for him, and she was tearing her hair out with despair at where he was.
At some point later in that day, she reported him as a missing person to West Midlands Police.
An Zhang's wife also described the night before he went missing, and an unexpected knock at their door late at night.
Court officers turned up at An Zhangdu's house and served court document. The ultimate outcome of the service of that court process would have resulted in bankruptcy for Mr. Du and his family. Mr. Du did not sleep that night. He was pacing up and down. He was clearly angry, agitated. It really had disturbed him.
The missing persons inquiry was raised on the Saturday, and as part of that investigation, police attended An Zhangdu's business premises in Birmingham, where they found a note, effectively saying goodbye to his wife.
Leaving a note and with no contact for 4 days, police consider the possibility An Zhang has taken his own life.
Clearly, you know, in terms of mindset, in terms of where he was at mentally at that stage, that would ring significant alarm bells for both, obviously, his wife and the police investigating his disappearance.
Police want to know, what was An Zhangdu's fate? Could he also have been a victim of the Ding's killer?
What detectives were left pondering was whether the missing persons case was now linked to a quadruple murder.
But what detectives uncover next points not only to An Zhang's fate, but also a motive for murder.
There was this legal dispute over business between the two families, and that there was a strong possibility that something had led to a coming together of Mr. Du on the one side and the Ding family on the other.
The quiet village of Wootton has been shocked by the mass murder of the Ding family. University lecturer Jeff, language teacher Helen, and their daughters Zing and Alice. All 4 have been found stabbed to death.
Wootton was not an area affected by crime, yet all of a sudden the world's media descended on their doorstep. It went from 0 to 60 in seconds.
A
doubt anybody in the country had really heard about Wootton Parish. And suddenly it was all over the news, headline news. It was shocking that actually somebody had murdered somebody in our village, and it's suddenly all over the world. On the BBC, for want of a better word, suddenly Wootton is there. It's just bizarre.
It's just a normal village that people come to and live or work or whatever. Just a normal village. When we heard what happened, how it happened, you can't believe it because you cannot understand why anybody could do that to a family and to children. Yeah, it was a bit of a shock.
Police have linked another investigation to the Dings murder, that of a missing persons inquiry for former business partner An Zhang-du. He disappeared just days before the family of 4 were found, and it's been discovered that both families were at war.
An Zhang-du and his wife had been involved in a bitter legal dispute with the Dings since 1999. It had been rumbling on for a long time. This relates to a breakdown in the business relationship.
This falling out resulted in a 10-year legal battle, which culminated in a late-night visit from lawyers.
Du and his wife had been served with a court injunction ordering them to repay £88,000, which forced them into a financial black hole and near bankruptcy.
This is a man that's completely at 6s and 7s. He's been knocked completely off his axis in terms of his future and what's going to happen to him.
Du clearly felt massively aggrieved. He'd put his life's work into this business and had it torn from underneath him, really.
That's when the bells start ringing and you've got the basis of a real solid motive for homicide.
Police believe An Zhang-du's anger at being summoned to pay the Dings an £88,000 settlement makes him a prime suspect. But they have yet to find any evidence which connects him to the crime.
What we would have to do is put Mr. Du at the scene of the murders.
All eyes turn to tracking An Zhang-du's movements on the day he went missing. He's first spotted on CCTV at his business in Birmingham.
He left the shop probably within 10 or 15 minutes of having arrived there.
He's next seen heading to a train station.
We traced him to New Street, so therefore we knew which train and platform he was on.
An Zhang-du then boards a train to Northampton.
There's CCTV footage of him on an escalator at Northampton bus station. So we know he transferred from the train station to the bus station. We then know that he got onto a bus that went to Wootton Village, and there is CCTV of An Zhang-du actually asking the driver of that bus for directions. Obviously, he was trying to establish where Jeff and Helen's house was in Pioneer Close.
So if you see down the road and you see the bus stop just down the road, that's where he came off the bus to come into the village. He got off and he came down this way and I think went into the local store and asked for directions. So why would you think if somebody's asking you directions that there's anything the matter? You just think he's going to meet friends on that special day.
This represents a significant milestone in both inquiries. The person at the heart of the missing persons case, An Zhang-du, has been placed in the vicinity of the Dings family home on the day they were murdered.
So we're now putting him closer and closer to the scene, and subsequently we have the sighting of a gentleman of Chinese appearance stood outside the Ding family household, probably about 4 o'clock on the afternoon of the 29th. So it's getting more and more and more likely that that person is An Zhang-du.
Now a prime suspect in the murder of a family of 4, police need to find out where he went next. But then the trail goes cold. An Zhang-du isn't seen on CCTV either leaving the area on foot or by bus.
There was an understandable level of fear among neighbours. 4 of their friends, including 2 young children, had been killed, and the person responsible hadn't been apprehended. He was on the loose. Where was he? Would he return? Would he do it again?
With days since the murders took place and no idea where the suspect could be, detectives examine every possible angle.
He's already got a 2-day head start on us. What we discovered in house-to-house routine inquiries is that the Ding family, their family car had gone in for service, and as a result they'd been given a hire car or a courtesy car to run around in, and that car was not at the Ding family household.
Police were now able to issue a name and a picture of their main suspect with a warning not to approach him in any circumstances. They revealed the car he was driving, and the country was put on alert to help find this man who was wanted in connection with 4 brutal murders.
The manhunt for An Zhang-du puts all forces across the UK on alert.
Police investigating the murders of a family of 4 in the village of Wootton, Northampton, have released information on a man wanted for questioning. 52-year-old Chinese national An Zhang-du was last seen 4 days ago, driving a silver Vauxhall Corsa. Members of the public are being advised not to approach him.
The pressure's immense, and it's a responsibility not just on your own professional reputation, but, you know, there's a community out there who expects the police to capture somebody who's this dangerous.
Key to tracking An Zhang-du is using automatic number plate recognition cameras.
We were hoping that modern technology such as ANPR, which is a very, very standard form of police inquiry, would help us out in that situation.
After multiple inquiries, a lead comes in. The stolen car's number plate triggered a camera on the night of the murders at a service station just outside Northampton on the M1.
And it showed that that vehicle, that hire vehicle, had been there at about 9:45 on the evening of the 29th. And An Zhang-du had been in to buy some chocolate or a drink, and importantly, a map book.
But where An Zhang is going, detectives don't know. ANPR cameras are checked, and there's no sign of the stolen car on any road in the UK. An Zhang-du has vanished.
At this point, police had no idea of An Zhang-du's whereabouts. Was he dead? Was he alive? Was he even in the UK?
While the manhunt intensifies, the Ding's friends and family are trying to come to terms with what's happened.
There was great sorrow from the students, especially those who were close to him doing projects and so on with him. A great sense of shock and sorrow that someone that helped them so much, of course, now is no longer with us.
For Zing and Alice's friends, meeting at their first county orchestral practice is a traumatic time.
It affected many of the other students very deeply. At orchestral rehearsals in the following week, flowers were left on their chairs. You know, teaching is one thing, but no one can prepare you for... How does a teacher cope with this? I don't know. No one prepares you for that.
For Jeff's family, struggling with the loss is only compounded by the grief of not knowing why this happened.
Actually, I first learned from the internet news, and I was completely shocked. I even cannot finish the news. Okay, once I saw the picture, I just... I mean, I cannot believe there's a 4 members all gone. I mean, it's just complete shock, okay? And then I think about my parents. If I cannot, you know, I manage that, think about the parents. They lost their children, their grandchildren, only one day.
Police investigating the murders of a family of 4 from Northampton have said they're concentrating their inquiries in London after a car stolen from the property was found parked near the Edgware Road.
After weeks of searching, the police get their first lead on their hunt for Aung San Suu, and it's created major problems for the investigation.
Unfortunately for us, Mr. Du, in his stolen hire car, managed to get all the way to St John's Wood in London without triggering a single police ANPR system. There was a point in this inquiry where I was thinking if we didn't have bad luck, we'd have no luck at all. Because not only did he miss ANPR, but when that car's parked in a side street in St John's Wood, the car is ticketed 9 times in 11 days. So we're now 13 days behind now. That's a significant problem in an investigation, because if you can go more or less anywhere in the world in 2 days, the world is literally your oyster in 13.
Whilst Du could be anywhere in the world, police concentrate their search in London.
Anyone who's been to London knows how easy it is to become anonymous in a city of that size and what opportunities there are to disappear within various communities. Obviously that was a huge concern to us, because if Aung San Suu wanted to lie low, then there's no finer place for him to do that and become anonymous and not be troubled too much. We're back to needle in a haystack time.
House-to-house inquiries uncover CCTV footage of Aung San Suu abandoning his stolen car in the early hours of the Friday night. Which reinforces detective suspicions that he's still in the area. The investigation moves to Chinatown in London's West End, and officers hand out wanted posters.
Obviously, language is an issue, although clearly most of the Chinese community within those areas will speak English. I think the most difficult cultural barrier is a natural reluctance to become involved with the police. And some people, even thought it was bad luck to put posters in shop windows and things like that. So, you've got to overcome those, but all you can do is reach out and engage and try and gain their confidence, but it certainly doesn't make it easier.
Whilst he's made it to London, police intel suggests that Aung San Suu wouldn't have gone far.
He was described to us as somebody innocuous, someone who probably would struggle to find his way round of his own volition,
Little did police know just how wrong this intel would prove to be.
Du had made his way through France and Spain and been seen getting on a ferry from Tangier to Morocco. He'd also been stopped at a border in Algeria. With multiple sightings, this had now become an international manhunt.
Police hunting for a man suspected of murdering a family of 4 from Wootton Village in Northamptonshire have put out a reward of £25,000 for information which could lead to his arrest. Detectives say there have been over 380 sightings of Aung San Suu across Europe, but the 52-year-old has now been missing for almost a year.
Having reviewed over 5,000 hours of CCTV footage and interviewing over 2,000 people, police have discovered that Aung San Suu is no longer in the country.
It's a mind-blowing thought, because literally there are 6 billion people in this world. Where do we start? Which country do we start with? You're just thinking, oh my goodness, where do we go from here?
I doubt anybody in the country had really heard about Wootton Parish. And suddenly it was all over the news, headline news. This guy had come into our parish, he'd committed these dreadful murders, and then he was running off around the world where they couldn't find him. It put Wootton for a while in the news.
It was strange having Wootton put out there like that.
Through CCTV analysis, police have uncovered Aung San Suu's journey from Wootton to London and then onwards.
He took a coach to the coast and then over to Paris, then onwards to a Spanish port. And the long and short of it is, by the time the police became aware of the bodies, he was out of the country. He's gone.
The police reach out to forces around the world and decide to travel to Spain.
Detectives had issued an appeal on the Spanish version of Crime Watch, and that appeal went out far and wide across the country.
That broadcast was seen also in Morocco, and my understanding is that as a result of that, a supervisor or foreman on the building site where Ang Jang Do had been working as a labourer, he alerted the local authorities, and the local authorities arrested Ang Jang Do after something like 14 months of being on the run.
Yeah, I remember when they caught him, I remember thinking, how on earth did he get there? Unnoticed and working, actually. How is he working? It shows they don't have the same laws that we have here about working. But yes, it was great. It was a good feeling to know he'd been caught.
I remember when the news broke out that he was being extradited back to the UK to be charged for the murders. Everyone felt like justice was finally going to be done.
But even though Ang Jang Do is safely locked up in a Moroccan jail, it's another 6 months before he's returned to the UK and charged with 4 counts of murder. It's taken over 2 years, but the trial into the murders of 4 members of the Ding family begins at Northampton Crown Court.
Surprisingly, Do pleaded not guilty in the court case. His version of events was that he'd gone round there to simply talk to the Do family and things had spiralled out of control.
The issue for this trial was not so much whether he killed the Ding family, it's whether he did it as a murderer of sound mind or whether there was some kind of diminished element.
The court hears how on the 29th of April 2011, Ang Jang Do was furious after he received a court order after a lengthy legal battle with Jeff and Helen Ding. His assets were frozen and he was ordered to pay the Dings £88,000. So, while the nation watched William and Kate get married, Ang Jang Do had gone to his shop to pick up a kitchen knife. Then, he headed towards the village where the Ding family lived.
My belief is that when he left the New Street station just after 11, he was going to Wootton in Northamptonshire with one thing on his mind, and that thing was murder, the ultimate revenge.
Ang Jang Do admits he entered the Ding's house via the back gate and finds Jeff Ding in the kitchen. They argue, and he stabs Jeff multiple times before attacking his wife Helen. He then goes upstairs and kills Zing and Alice. They are both huddled together in one bedroom.
What I can't reconcile, what I'll never be able to understand, is when that anger, that evilness, that bile is such that it makes a grown man climb a set of stairs, enter a room with 2 young girls cowering on a bed, frightened beyond description, and then plunge a knife into both of them and fatally wound them both without any compunction or restriction, just to execute 2 young. I'll never get over it. I'll never understand it.
During the trial, the jury also hears a recording of a 999 call. It was made by one of the girls when they heard Ang Jang Do attacking their parents.
It transpired that a 999 call had been made from the property at the time of the killings. Police had responded to the call, but had been sent to the wrong address and had no answer, and therefore the case was effectively closed.
I've heard that tape recording. It's horrific. Absolutely horrific. And those screams, I won't forget them, because I know what was happening when those girls were screaming, because a murderer had entered the room and was in the process of fatally murdering those two girls. Absolutely. I can't reconcile myself to that action. It's horrendous.
As the trial progresses, further details emerge about what happened after Du murdered the family.
After killing the family of 4, Du stayed in the house for 6 hours and actually went to sleep.
He then takes the time to wash the kitchen knife that he brought with him and leaves it on the kitchen worktop before stealing money and the Ding's hire car. He manages to evade authorities for over a year. But after a 2-week trial, Ang Zhang-du is found guilty of all 4 counts of murder.
Ang Zhang-du was found guilty of multiple murders and was sentenced to 40 years in prison, the longest sentence ever passed down in the history of courts in Northamptonshire.
With all due respect, Ang Zhang-du is exactly where he should be in terms of the crime he committed and public safety.
The community were pleased that something so barbaric had gone full circle, really, and the man who had carried out this dreadful crime had been put away.
The fact that he's never going to get out of prison, yeah, but it still should never have happened. But they've got as much justice as possible.
After 10 years, those that knew the family are still coming to terms with the loss.
I don't think there's ever any way that justice can ever really be done that can make up really for what happened. There isn't, and that's the closest we can get. And whatever punishment he got is never going to make up for for what happened that day.
I suppose there was some sense of, okay, that's over now, but you're never going to get those girls back, ever. And that's going to remain with me for the rest of my life.
Ang Zhang-du will be 92 years old before he's eligible for release. But for Jeff's brother, Ji-xiang, life will never be the same.
I cannot accept, the reality, basically. And then I think about my parents. They lost their children, their grandchildren, on one day. I have many questions to ask him. Among them, the only one question that strikes me most is, I want to ask him, how could you stab a knife into an innocent girl's heart? Not once, but twice. How could you do that? An innocent girl, you get that in. I'm not that confident whether I can rebuild my life anymore. I don't think my life will be the same again as before.